It's 2024, and we are in the midst of a historic election here in the United States. And it's historic because we have the oldest presidential candidates we have ever seen facing off for the White House. For the Democrats, we've got Joe Biden, which is entirely expected because he is the incumbent president. We're not going to run anyone other than the incumbent. We could, but we all know that we're not gonna.
I get it. Try being 110 and doing it again.
And for the Republicans, we've got Donald Trump. Now, Trump obviously hasn't been officially nominated by the party yet, but again, we all know that he will be. Nikki Haley, his biggest threat, will likely drop out of the race very soon. Biden is a few years older than Trump, and the Trump campaign will not let you forget it. They have made a point of reminding people that Trump is the younger and more vital candidate, but barely, if at all.
Trump's assault on democracy isn't just part of his past. It's what he's promising for the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power.
Did you see him? He was stuttering through the whole thing. He's going, he's a threat to democracy. They've weaponized government. He's saying, I'm a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democracy. Well, okay. Couldn't read the word. He's a threat to democracy. You know how bad the press is? You know what they do? They take me saying that like that, and they say, Trump couldn't say the word democracy.
That guy's got a serious weight problem. Go home, start exercising.
I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I mean, I really don't think that I am because I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Biden, but I don't see it. I don't see dementia. I just see a much older man who has cognitive and memory lapses just like a lot of older people do. This one just insists on continuing to work at an incredibly high level, the highest in the world, in fact. That job is the hardest and most stressful and most physically and mentally and emotionally taxing in the world. It makes sense that he's fumbling a bit. And I don't know if that makes me ageist, but I think it's just true. It's a little farcical that we're looking to this man to lead us into the future. Now that said, I don't think anything Joe Biden has said or done is worse than the things that Trump has said or done, even though Trump is so much younger than Biden, and yes, that's sarcasm. He has had more than his fair share of hilarious cognitive failures, things that late-night hosts have been highlighting and poking fun at for years.
Obama he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't even mention them in his statements. It's all coming through Iran.
Well, you mean President Biden?
They were interviewing him 2 weeks ago, and they said, what would you advise President Obama? The whole world seems to be exploding. They never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want. They turned it down.
He was confused. He was confused the same way he said Joe Biden was going to start World War II.
And yet the Trump team has managed to sell this idea that Joe Biden is so much worse than Trump when really, aren't they really kind of the same, at least in this very specific context? Trump doesn't know who the president of Turkey is. Biden doesn't know who the president of Egypt is. We're not in good shape either way, again, in this very specific context. Anyway, so now the Biden campaign has to fight back against the allegations that he is mentally unfit for the presidency, and all of this comes at a time when he has misspoken, we'll say, quite a bit publicly. So all of the Biden people are out. They've been hitting the news circuit hard, defending their president in an effort to reassure the voting American public that Joe Biden is more than capable to be the president for another 4 years. But all of this reminds me of the later seasons of Game of Thrones a little bit. Sansa Stark was always kind of a lame character to me, but toward the end of the show, the cast kept doing promos saying that Sansa's really going to start coming into her own as a leader, as a feminist, as a queen fighter, whatever. So I thought, great, can't wait to see it. When the season finally aired, I didn't find Sansa doing anything particularly smart or impressive, but the characters in the show just kept talking about how smart Sansa was as if it had been a known and proven thing all along. It's a classic case of show, don't tell. When you're telling a story, the more compelling narrative is to show the audience what you would like to communicate to them rather than just telling them what you want them to understand. You help them to come to certain realizations on their own. It has a more meaningful impact on the audience. They can see and feel for themselves the truth that you want them to grasp, and it's got more depth. Conversely, if you just tell people that Sansa or Joe Biden is smart while they continue to do and say unsmart things, you're really not convincing anyone of much. You're gaslighting your audience and insulting their intelligence. But if you ask me, the best way for the Biden campaign to combat these allegations of mental unfitness is to show mental fitness and mental acuity. Others suggest that Biden should be more forceful and relentless in pointing out that while he may have some struggles, so does the other guy. But personally, I think that's giving too much credit to something that you're trying to discredit. Besides, it is unlikely at this point that you'll be able to convince a Trump supporter that Trump is imperfect. In an article in the Daily Beast, a 2020 senior advisor to the Biden campaign said, quote, "Us Democrats and the White House still believe we're in the year 2005 and the Republican Party is normal. Those days are over." The Republican Party in 2005, that was George W. Bush's Republican Party, so maybe not quite normal, but closer to normal than what we've got now. But 2005 was a long time ago. It was a completely different time. I was a completely different person. I think I was a junior in high school back then. I didn't have an iPhone strapped to my hand at all times. The only social media we had then was MySpace. And I'm just saying maybe we were better off for it. But the point is, that was a radically different America. We were different people, we engaged with each other and with our government differently, and while things were far from perfect, we simply didn't have a lot of the modern challenges we have today. The idea that artificial intelligence would disrupt nearly every job market and industry, for example, was literally not a thing anyone was worrying about back then. Now, having said all of that, while both of these candidates are past their primes and out of their elements, they are the candidates we're stuck with. One of them will be our next president. The best hope we have is that whoever wins in November has a really strong and competent cabinet to pull them through. Right now, though, the Biden strategy going forward seems to be reframing the negativity around age and approaching the whole thing with humor. And Biden is now on TikTok, so here we are. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thanks.